The digital presence of your business is wider than you think. Growing your business online brings new opportunities, but also new risks. Threats spread quickly like mold, but this is only the visible part. Hidden threats, complex schemes, organized criminal groups. To defeat complex threats, you need an innovative, adversary-centric solution.
Hello and welcome everyone to our first Digital Risk Summit. My name is Kamil Cebula. I'm responsible for Group IB's business in Europe. And with me here today is Dmitry Tunkin, who is the head of our Digital Risk Protection Department in Europe.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you for joining us. This summit should be a fresh public platform to tackle new critical challenges around digital risks. What we want to do is we want to bring together top-level cybersecurity experts, independent analysts, companies from various industries, and of course also authorities. Before we jump into the agenda, let's start with some housekeeping items. Today, you will be able to ask us questions. Please post those questions into the Q&A form. We will then answer them in the end of the event. Also, the entire summit is going to be recorded, and those recordings can be provided to you upon request.
So, let's have a brief look at the agenda. So, we're going today focus on 5 key vectors: online scams, counterfeiting, piracy, data leaks, and VIP impersonations. The event itself, the summit itself, is structured in 4 main blocks. The first one is going to be an expert panel. So here we're going to discuss the latest global trends in digital risks. The second one, here we're going to give you a deep dive into the next-gen technology designed especially for combating digital risks. For the third, we have industry-specific case studies and best practices that were recorded and provided by our friends, customers, and clients. So all of them are really keen to share their knowledge and their experience with you. For the rest, we have the fourth block, where we are going to uncover a new approach to fighting scams and to provide you with a sneak peek of our new research on the global scandemic.
Digital transformation is driving the economy. Many companies are becoming increasingly digital and expanding in the online side of the business. Brands strive to raise their visibility across multiple channels. When we look into the latest IDC report, we see that IDC is predicting a 52% growth of global GDP by 2023 driven by digital products. Also, they are predicting that within the next years, the speed of product development will increase by 50 to 100 times, not percent. Last but not least, they are saying that by 2024, 520 million new apps should be developed and produced and distributed for better customer experience. To scale up the business, increase the speed to market, and build a superior customer experience, companies need to expand their digital reach. As your digital presence continues to grow, so does your exposure to new risk. How well do you actually know your digital presence? Many businesses still lack a holistic view into the cyber risk to their digital assets, scattered across geographies, business units, remote offices nowadays. Cyber attacks target companies from any industry, utilize multitudes of digital channels, and can strike anywhere at any time. So why is it so important to understand your digital risk landscape? When you build your business, you focus on your brand, you focus on your infrastructure, and you basically build a wall around it, and from there you're serving your customers. What fraudsters are trying to do is they want to leverage your brand to lure your customers to their fraudulent offering. There they are being defrauded, and when they then return to you after those resources disappear, then obviously you face not only their negative experience which they have experienced back there next to the fraudulent resources, but also financial losses, brand reputation losses, and your brand is being harmed. So that's why we say it's so important to look now outside your perimeter at what is happening, not only inside in your walls. When we were speaking about data breaches in the past, those attacks were targeting you inside. We know exactly how much harm they cost to your company. We could value that. But now with brands, we have a similar situation. Brands can be under attack, and they can be under attack outside your perimeter and also cost harm, financial harm, and also reputational harm. So therefore, today we will focus on the main digital risk vectors. Let's run briefly through the main digital risk meanings first so that we are all on the same page.
Okay, so from the very beginning, let's start from the, I would say, must-have risks, which is extremely important to be mentioned and to be explained today. This is, of course, phishing and scams. So what is the main difference? Let's focus on the phishing. Phishing is a fake pages that instead of paying, steal your card details, logins, and also sometimes passwords in order to gain access to all money or data. Yep, so this is the first thing. The second one are scams. And scams are also websites, but they withdraw money immediately in the form of specific payments or transfers. So I would say here that the major also issue that while dealing with phishing or scamming issues, you need to, I would say, try dealing with it from different angles. But let's discuss it in more details a bit later. So after we have another digital risk, which is counterfeiting. And this is pretty similar. This is providing counterfeit products. But even if it sounds pretty simple, there is also a kind of a tricky issue here, because it should be divided onto gray imports and fake goods. So fake goods, this is again quite clear. Somebody is trying to produce a good on behalf of your company, but this is a fully illegitimate good. And as for gray imports, this goes to those legitimately produced goods that were illegitimately imported onto the territory of a country. Then we have piracy, of course the digital one, yep. And under the roof of piracy we have different types of illegal content, starting from digital copies of movies, TV series, software, games, music, books, and even up to TV streamings. And then we have posting sensitive information. This is leakage to code repositories on the development stages. So it sometimes happens when your developers producing something and they may occasionally or not occasionally sometimes post a file on some code repositories. This can also lead to unauthorized access to your internal stuff. Then VIP impersonation. This is maybe related to a specific person, of course, but as soon as we are talking about a company, it has its reputational costs. It has lots of top-level executives. And if somebody tries to pretend being a top-level executive of your company somewhere in social media, this means that this may affect the entire company's reputation. Then false partnership. Okay, so this is not so complicated sometimes, and sometimes it is mixed with scams. But okay, this is the promotion of a third-party service or product of questionable quality. Okay, again, don't mix it with counterfeiting too. This particular issue is not meaning that somebody is producing or importing something, some products that your company has produced, but this also leads to a decrease in users' loyalty. And then, fake mobile applications. These can carry all of the previously listed risks: theft of data, money, and even access to the device. just combine it with like an attack, a target attack to any specific users, and you can imagine the harm which can be treated to this person. And then fake advertising. This is the capture of a part of the advertising traffic of branded queries, followed by deception in the above ways. And okay, this is maybe not a huge risk, but very often within contextual advertisements they are placed either scamming or phishing websites, which really which is really affecting your audience. Then trademark misuse. This is the smallest from the major common sense thing. But basically when somebody is using your trademark, your company's trademark, it can also bring some damage to your company. And sometimes this is equated with a false partnership, but you also need to check whether this is just a trademark misuse or a real false partnership. And the last for today is discussing your company on the dark web. So this is about publishing subtle points and options for earning money on your brand, as well as increasing attention to your company in the cybercriminals community. Very often, money and data are stolen from your customers directly, but not from your company. So this is also extremely important. These risks are affecting companies of different industries, of different sizes, and from different parts of the world. But for the past several years, this disaster has been spreading enormously. And we suppose that it is really the time to declare an era of scamdemic.
Let's round this all up with a couple of numbers from our DRP team. Our DRP team looked back into the past year and identified that they saved around 443 million US dollars from our customers' losses. That's quite a lot of money, and when you take into account that there is so much more fraud outside of our customers' perimeter, then you can imagine how much money those fraudsters are actually making. Also, they see that around 73% of all cybercrime is accounted to scams and phishing, while scams themselves make around 56% of cybercrime. So the issue with scams is even bigger than the issue which we see with phishing attacks. When we look at how the geography developed, then we see that in Europe we have 39% plus in scams over the last year, over 2020. In Asia Pacific, we see an even higher growth with 88%. When looking into the Middle East, and we will see that the number is slightly smaller, but still very big at 27.5% for the Middle Eastern region. And then, last but not least, CIS with an increase of 35%, which altogether is, of course, quite a lot. Now I think it's time to introduce our first guest speaker, Pascal Hetchold, Senior Director Content Protection at Wiley. We asked him to share his vision on the digital risk landscape and the main challenges today. Also, Pascal will share his insights on how to protect intellectual property and content against online piracy and brand abuse.
Hi everybody, my name is Pascal Hetchold and I'm the Senior Director of Content Protection for the global publisher Wiley. We publish and distribute trade books, textbooks, research articles and journals, collaborating with authors, author societies, academia and libraries all over the world. The title of this presentation is Entities that Protect Their Intellectual Property Are the Entities That Thrive. I would say that is especially the case in an era in which distribution is becoming cheaper, easier, and faster, whereas it turns out that content is still very much king. A little bit about my background. I started out working for the Dutch National Police, where I focused most of my time on policy-related matters involving the mitigation of cybercrime phenomena such as hacking, pro-terrorist activities online, and the distribution of child abuse images online. After 5 years working for the police, I joined the Hollywood movie industry to support their battle against online piracy while supporting the important work of their associations and technology vendors as well. Currently, I'm representing Wiley, protecting their content portfolio against content piracy and brand abuse. Let me kick off by mentioning a couple of key challenges that I have been witnessing over the years and very recently as well. One of the most important topics that I would like to put forward is the fact that cyber criminals are still not always specializing. It's us on the enforcement side who are categorizing old and various types of crimes and new crimes and cyber crimes offline and online. And we are prioritizing them according to their importance and the impact that they may have, and perhaps the financial damage that they can cause. Cyber criminals are not differentiating like that. They are simply focusing on any type of activity that can make them money, and especially the type of activities that bring with them a lower chance of getting caught, or those activities for which there are no meaningful sanctions in place. That means that by not looking holistically at all types of cybercrime, we are missing out on a lot of information about the criminal organizations that are orchestrating these cyber attacks. And that's really a pity, because focusing on IP crime can very well be a perfect Trojan horse into many of these organizations, even or especially on a global scale. It will be logical to all of you that lower chances of being caught can easily equal massive profits. And one of the ways in which cybercriminals are lowering the chances of getting caught is by increasing the technical complexity of many cybercrimes that exist. Therefore, my view is that we tried in the past to only follow the money or focus on those activities that relied on human interaction, but we now also need to make sure that we make use of a lot of technology to address these cyber challenges. Reason being that many of these cyber crimes are now being conducted automatically and at a global scale. Not only victims of cybercrime, but also the operators of online platforms where people interact are finding it more and more difficult to deal with the size and the volume and the impact of illegality that is going on online nowadays. And it's no longer sufficient to try and use humans only to moderate all of the problems that are affecting people who are conducting business online, or governments who are communicating with their citizens online. There are so many activities taking place online and so many threat factors that can disrupt those activities that we need smart technologies to both mitigate the cybercrimes and generate intelligence as to the people and organizations causing those cybercrimes. But I do recognize the fact that it will always be important to also make the fight against cybercrimes and IP crimes and content piracy a personal one, because many of these cyber criminals and pirates and scammers are still heavily relying on the fact that they are using intermediaries to achieve their goals, and they still believe that technology will give them the anonymity that they need, especially if they combine all of this with sometimes physically traveling from one location in the world to another. Therefore, I think that we have no choice but to combine the expertise of the private sector, the public sector, and the technology space to not only make our digital environments more safe, but also to be effective against crimes on the internet. So, what are we seeing when we zoom in on my industry, the book publishing industry? Unfortunately, we have been falling victim to large-scale and global looting and plundering of our book content and research that we are publishing globally, much like other industries such as the movie industry and music industry have been experiencing as well. Everybody who is creating and selling and distributing attractive content, either for educational or entertainment purposes, will be a target to individuals who would like to monetize that on their own accord, using all sorts of technical means and verbal excuses to justify theft of content and then profiting from that after the theft. In our case, due to the nature of our content, we are being confronted with entities that are trying to steal the login credentials to our content platforms in order to make pirated versions of our content available online, either for a fee or in return for donations, or just because they can. The nature of our research content also contributes to the fact that some states might be interested in obtaining large quantities of our data in order to enhance their own economies, or in order to find out more about certain fields of research or the individuals that might be interested in that research. So, much like other industries, for example, the sports broadcasters who have had to deal with state-sponsored piracy, we are also encountering situations where countries look to loot and plunder valuable knowledge to enhance their own economies. Some of those states are in fact looking to plunder valuable knowledge and content belonging to other governments or companies because they are so aware of the very high value of intellectual property to their own country and economy, which is why you will see them simultaneously protecting their own intellectual property to the highest degree possible. But in addition to that larger scale piracy, we are also finding many situations where individual pirates or smaller groups of people are stealing credentials to our content platforms, not to steal the content itself or use it without authorization, but to already sell the access to those platforms. So, for example, on global auction and e-commerce sites. But in those situations that I just described, we are talking about actual content or actual access being made available for a fee or to enrich themselves with knowledge. But in line with all the topics that we are discussing today, unfortunately, there are also tens of thousands of websites which are completely and utterly fake. Those websites try and draw traffic with the mere promise of stolen content or access to it, but will eventually deliver nothing. They just want you to believe that eventually you will gain access to pirated versions of the material that you are looking for. But their goal is purely to get their hands on your personal details and financial details in order to scam you and take your money. Also, cyber criminals and sometimes government entities are orchestrating hundreds of thousands of attacks on the networks of publishers globally to try and obtain login credentials or information about internet users that are making use of those content platforms. And in addition to that, there are thousands of fake websites currently online pretending to be publishers, trying to scam authors, thinking they may even get someone to publish their book. And finally, there are also publishers that are experiencing ransomware attacks as well as denial of service attacks. All of these cybercrimes have severe consequences in relation to the business activities conducted online, but also in relation to the trust that people have in online services and technologies. It also makes clear that enhanced content security with the focus on, for example, movies, music, software, and books in their digital format is not enough. It is of the utmost importance that companies that are conducting business online are securing the entire interaction between them and their customers or business partners, much like some financial institutions are already doing currently. That type of security will have to include two-factor authentication, biometric verification, and device verification. So, what else can we do to make our lives online and offline a little bit more safe as a person or as a business? Well, first of all, proactive and holistic action is required. Waiting until incidents have been taken place will not work for you, as you will be scrambling to first find out what actually happened, to assess how you can guarantee business continuity, and to determine which third parties can help you mitigate the problem. And by that time, you are 2 weeks down the road. So you need to know everything about your digital and commercial activities on the internet in order for you to be able to properly protect yourself against the threats that are part of dealing with all of these entities online. This means that you need to know everything about your own content, your own systems, your networks, and any of the threats related to your own online digital activities. Know how your assets propagate, what the right status is relevant to your assets, and think about copyright and trademark registrations and collaborate with smart vendors to proactively develop a strategy to protect your business, your customers, your content, and to prepare yourself for any incidents that may occur to ensure a response that will be as rapid and targeted as possible. And the latter will, of course, limit the damage that will be incurred eventually. All of the above will contribute to a situation where you will always have everything you need ready for the next step when you know where the attacks are coming from and who may have either disrupted your networks and systems or who may have stolen your data. The next step being potential criminal prosecution or civil litigation. This is something your smart vendor can help you with as well. It will be very important to be able to show to enforcement agencies and prosecution authorities what exactly happened, how the incident took place, and where the attacks were coming from. But the most important aspect will be for you to adapt your distribution model. And note that I'm not saying business model because I firmly believe there are no like new and better or old business models. It's just about business models that are working for you or not working for you and that are making you money or not. But if you are able to adapt your distribution model in such a way that it will provide a safe and secure environment for you or employees or your customers, then you will see that any damage due to scams and cybercrime and piracy or brand abuse will either be very limited or it will be easier for you to hold those responsible who have caused the attacks on your systems and on your information. You can then also hold them accountable. Again, this can be achieved by securing the interaction between you as a business or government and the people or organizations you are dealing with, and by making sure that the environment where these activities are taking place allows for verification of the authenticity of the transaction, the authenticity of the content, and of the information, as well as the verified authenticity of the identity of the people and businesses involved in the transaction. Know your assets, know your rights, and know your digital environment. And don't be afraid to ask for help from people who are smarter than you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pascal, for this brilliant presentation. I want to highlight the important points that Pascal has just made. We need to have perfect visibility of the digital environment and develop a proactive and holistic approach rather than keep fighting with windmills. So thank you again, Pascal, for the presentation. And let's go to the second speaker of today, Jinan Baj. Jinan Baj is Principal Analyst serving security and risk professionals at Forrester Research. She will today outline practical steps on how to build a solid strategy to manage digital risks in an organization. Jinan will also talk about human errors and related scams. She will lay out a 4-step plan that CISOs should follow to manage human risk. Jinan will join our global events today from Australia. Hi Jinan, how are things going there in Sydney?
Thank you very much. Look, the pandemic in Australia, like everywhere in the world, has introduced itself a set of challenges. We have been very lucky in the country here in that we've managed to, I guess, get a hold on the pandemic quite early. So most of us are now back in an office environment and life seems to be progressing as normal. We haven't had a big lockdown for a while. But regardless of all of that, at the beginning, we shared things with the rest of the world. We did have to go into lockdown. We did have to go into working from home mode. From a cybersecurity perspective, this had all sorts of implications, which I'm going to be addressing during this presentation. So, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Janan Budge, and I'm the principal analyst leading our security and risk research in Asia Pacific and globally our research on people and culture and security. I've been a practitioner and I've been an analyst for the last 20 years, and I've seen so many sides of this amazing industry. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about my number one priority and passion in security, and that is the human side. And I am hoping to make you as motivated as I am to always prioritize the management of the human risk. Now, let's talk about the human factor. For a very long time in security, since I joined the profession, we've been hearing about this human factor. We often hear statistics that 95% of attacks happen as a result of human error. And certainly that momentum, that rhetoric has gained momentum over the last few years. In 2020 at Forrester, we predicted that cyber attacks are going to get personal. Why? Because as a society, as humanity, our lives increasingly depend on technology to live, to work, to play, to transact, to socialize. And that dependence is also making our technology and therefore every single one of us a target. And it became abundantly clear that cybersecurity decisions that you all make in your organizations have got a broader societal implication than ever before. Now, we told our customers back then in 2020, this is even before the COVID-19 pandemic, we told them that the thing you need to worry about in 2020 and beyond is yourselves. It's how technologies are going to change the experiences of our lives. We talked about deep fakes costing businesses millions of dollars. We talked about mass data collection driving anti-surveillance technology. And we talked about privacy, dark patterns, manipulating humans, and earning brands fines. And then suddenly COVID-19 came along and our theme literally took on a whole new level with the work evolution that saw so many of us who are lucky enough to be able to working remotely. It saw our children studying remotely and spending more time online than they were ever allowed to before the pandemic. And this changed everything. But let me just take a step back, and I actually want to come back to Australia and some of the things that happened last year with regards to the evidence of the rise of the risk to people and the risk which people pose from a cybersecurity perspective. And I love this data, and I'm talking about this data from Australia, not only because I'm from Australia, but it's actually one of the few statistics that I've seen that actually break down this issue at such minute level. So, the Australian Government Office of Australian Information Commissioner has got a breach notification remit. So people submit to them what the breaches are, and this is what the picture looks like. Just to summarize it very quickly for you, human-related breaches that were reported to the office make up 66% of those breaches, and they include things like human error, data theft of paperwork, rogue employees, insider threat, and phishing. 66% relate to the human. So this is even before COVID. But let's talk about what happened in COVID. And again, this particular data is also Australian, but it's very similar to data that we saw in geographies across the world, particularly at the beginning of the pandemic. First of all, the first thing that we saw is that huge increase of global anxiety. People were worried. They were worried, of course, not only about their health and the pandemic, but they were worried that their company was going to lay off or fire people, that their company might not make it, or that their job was not going to be secure and that they were going to be let go. And 37% of people have a fear of going to work when things opened up. And I can tell you, thank you for your question earlier about what's happening in Australia. It took us about 6 months or so after everything opened up for everyone to start feeling comfortable to go back to work. And of course, at the very peak of the pandemic, we saw in my geography 68% of people working from home. And we don't have exactly equivalent data from before the pandemic, but some of the data I've seen suggested that this was 3%. So it's gone up from 3% working from home to 68%. And when we looked at data that was coming from around the world, about 40% of employees couldn't wait to get back to the office, and 55% of employees um, basically just want to work from home forever. So it's that almost like half. I want to go back. I never want to go back. So we don't know what the future is going to hold exactly. What we do expect, though, is that there is going to be very much a blurred line between work and home, and the future is looking to be hybrid. Why am I talking to you about global anxiety? Why am I talking to you about stress and that blurred line between home and work? Well, actually, the reason is this this attackers have basically capitalized on that anxiety and the fear. That anxiety and the fear causes people to be a lot more vulnerable to cyber attacks. So therefore, the attackers are using this, for example, with COVID-19 themed phishing campaigns, using the subject of COVID-19 as a lure. Malware distribution is using COVID-19 themed lure. We saw a huge increase registration of new domain names containing wording related to COVID-19. And of course, with employees working from home, we saw a lot of attacks against newly and often rapidly deployed remote access and teleworking infrastructure. There's all sorts of statistics about how much this increases in COVID-19 themes have gone by. For example, with phishing, when I receive briefings from my vendor community, I've been told that phishing attacks increased somewhere between 300% to 33,000%. So, depending on the data and the statistics that you believe. But one thing we do know for sure is that they have increased. And I just want to let you all know something as well. Whilst that has slowed down now in early 2021, we expect that the attackers are going to take advantage of the anxiety that's relating to vaccines. So we are going to expect more phishing attacks that have got vaccine related luring themes on it. So I wanted to share that with you as well. Now, one other thing that I do want to mention as well that occurred during the pandemic, we saw that in one of our global surveys, this is back in March 2020, it revealed that 70% of those who responded were using their smartphones or their mobile phones more as a direct result of the coronavirus outbreaks. So again, related to the pandemic. Why is this important actually? Because when people are using their mobile devices, we're often sitting here, we're in a rush, we're not really looking at all of the different information, the header data, for example, we're distracted and we just want to take a quick action, which causes problems. Now, I know that I've said a whole bunch of words. I've used words such as malware, business email compromise, or I'm going to phishing. So I want to just very quickly go through a few definitions of some of these attacks and scams and make sure that we're all on the same page. So there's such a thing as non-targeted phishing. This is a non-targeted attack. And this is when the attackers attempt to reach as many employees as they possibly can. Then we've got something that is unfortunately becoming a lot more common, and that is spear phishing, which is very specifically targeted towards specific users. So the attackers will do their research, they'll find out as much as they can about a particular individual. Quite often, they are a senior individual who can request money transfers from his or her subordinates, typically a CEO, and they target them. But there are many other groups also. Whaling specifically is something that is targeted towards executives, CEOs, CFOs. And we have, of course, business email compromises, which is impersonation attacks. They may originate from inside the company as well as outside of the company. And it's typically an email that comes from management requesting people to do something. So they are the different phishing attack types, and they come via different phishing methods. Malware embedded, so these are email attachments that have got the malware embedded in them. Malicious URL, which is a link in an email that leads to a website with malware, so that then once the user clicks, they either accidentally share their identity information or their password. And last but not least, impersonation. So the attacker poses as a trusted sender. There's domain spoofing, business email compromise, and all of this stuff. And I'm talking specifically about phishing here because it is such a big component of the human risk. Why? Because it's easy and it works. It's so easy for the attackers to do. It's simple, it's effective for the attackers. And some of the common attacks, credential theft. So they steal your credential, your username, your user ID, and then they use that to target company resources or your own personal things such as bank accounts and so on. Wire transfers, so they unwitting victims follow the directions and they end up transferring money, sometimes a lot of money, or malware distribution. And I want to talk about some of the financial figures. So almost half of reported losses in our data in 2019, approximately $1.77 billion were due to business email compromise. So this is big business. This is really big business for the attackers. I know I've downloaded a lot on you, but I want to close off this section, all of these definitions and all of this drama before we dive into the good news. We've been trying to tackle this as an industry almost the whole time I've been in my career. And I can tell you that the old approaches are not working. And what I'm going to do in the next part of the presentation is show you why they're not working and also give you an alternative way to manage this human risk. So I have good news and I have bad news. So the good news is so many organizations realize that this is a problem, that the human risk is a problem in cybersecurity. And as a result, we know that 42% of global security technology decision makers say that instilling a security culture by elevating communications, rolling out effective security training for employees and executives, it's a strategic priority, 42%. So that's huge. So unfortunately, as an industry, what we've done is that we're still suffering from the good old tick in the box approach to this problem. So what we do is we go ahead and we purchase a security awareness and training solution, we tick the box and we think, that's it, we've done it, we've addressed the problem. However, that is actually not the case. Security awareness and training solutions are definitely very important. So I don't want to undermine them. I cover this market. I'm very invested in this market, but they are not the whole story because by themselves, and especially when they're used in that tick in the box fashion, they're plugging the wrong holes. So they're not changing behavior. So my call to action, if you remember nothing else out of today, is I want you to think about making behavior change, not awareness, the name of the game. So it's all about behavior change, because if you don't do it that way, if you only focus on awareness, you're going to have a few problems. So first of all, awareness, in my mind and from my research, I see a big difference between awareness and understanding. If you have awareness of something without understanding, you're going to cause panic. So, for example, when your executives are aware that there's this random cyber threat outside. They don't really know, they don't understand much about it. They're going to make rash decisions. They're going to become very risk averse. They are going to, for example, want to disable all of your personal emails in your organizations, which may or may not be right, but you don't want to go straight away to risk aversion. The other problem with only focusing on awareness is that we are not changing behaviors. So I want to share some data with you. So in spite of us running security awareness and training programs and presentation after presentation for the couple of decades I've been in this industry, here's some data for you. Only 27% of respondents to our surveys say that they are aware of the organization's current security policies. Only 22% of them say that they know what they can do if there is a cybersecurity breach. And perhaps, and this is the one that probably worries me the most, is 8% have flat out told us that they will sometimes go ahead and go around their cybersecurity policies. One of the issues that I see over and over again when you are only giving security awareness is that people are bored. They are overloaded. They genuinely cannot take one more thing. It's really interesting. I was doing a very similar talk, such as this one, when we were in lockdown in Australia several months ago, and I was one of the unlucky people who was sharing an office with my husband. So he knows how passionate I am at this space. And he was sitting down doing his security awareness and training program that his company made him do. And like everybody that I know, he was so cranky. He was so, I don't want to do this. This is wasting my time. Why is this robot talking at me? And I asked him a question. I said, well, you know, what if it's helpful for you? What if you find this useful? And he said very outright, why would I find this useful? I've got so many other things to do. Just does not want to spend hours and hours doing this training. And last but not least, if you focus only on this, only on training and only on your phishing simulations and do this once a year and not really give it too much thought, then you're going to run the risk of ruining the brand of security. I wrote a blog, I think it was back in December or November last year, about a company in the US who conducted a phishing simulation just a couple of months after they laid off a whole bunch of employees due to COVID-19. They had to cut costs. And the security team of that company, in their wisdom, decided that the phishing simulation, the email lure that they were going to use to train the employees, was actually to offer those remaining employees who have just been through the trauma of seeing their colleagues lose their jobs, to offer them a bonus of $5,000 to $10,000 if they click on that link. So you can imagine when people are so anxious, when they're so upset, when they're so fearful, and somebody tricks them with something like this. So the brand of the company took a massive hit. This was reported on in the Wall Street Journal as well as all of security media. The brand took a hit. The vendor who ran that particular phishing simulation, their brand also took a hit, in spite of the fact that they work very closely with their clients to counsel them against to counsel them on the ethics of running phishing simulations. And of course, one of the worst things for me is that security's already tarnished reputation faced even more negativity. Nearing the end now, and I want to leave you with a really important message. I think we've talked about influencing the organization up, down, and across. We've talked about changing behaviors, managing risk. But I really want to talk about, if you are a security person listening to this, if you're in IT and have a security team, I really want you to take this to heart. It's really important that you start with changing the culture and behavior and the influence of your own security team first and foremost. What I've learned in my research, in my career, in my background, is that the biggest effort that we have today is the image of security itself. The non-security workforce, unfortunately, still sees the security team as this hoodie-wearing basement dwellers and punishers who enforce policies and make everyone else's workday more difficult, which is so not the case, because security people are so mission and so purpose driven. They've got actually such a strong focus on their internal customers and their external customers, but that is not the image that's being perpetrated. So it's really important to make sure that before we start influencing security outside, to actually think about it at the inside of our team. And with that, I want to thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, please feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I welcome all discussion about this. I feel so passionate about it, and hopefully I've been able to share some insights with you today.
Thank you very much, Jinan, for your insightful presentation. Global analytical agencies have finally added a separate product category to their solutions pool, digital risk protection. We have been struggling with this for over 10 years and are very grateful to the analysts of Forrester who have actually done that. And now we are also happy to drop the curtains onto our interpretation of what digital risk protection should actually look like.
Okay, speaking about the past 10 years, we successfully protected more than 400 brands during this period. And currently we have more than 60 worldwide highly skilled analysts. So why it is important to have people on the ground? I would say this is our main approach, because we assume that they need to research, to investigate, and also to eliminate the risks directly from the local region. However, to keep speaking on the digital risk protection vision, firstly, we need to share our background.
When we are talking about background, we are usually talking about the Group IB ecosystem. Those of you who know Group IB and who know what is actually hiding under our hood are aware that we have lots of products and solutions which are building synergies among each other. And we have the same situation, of course, with DRP as well. Today, I don't want to go into all details of all our environment and all of our ecosystem, but focus on three elements which are very crucial for DRP as well. The first one I would like to mention is our background in criminal investigations and DFIR. For the last 18 years, we have been researching cybercrime, we have been tracking cyber criminals, defending from them, but also investigating into cybercrime together with law enforcement to make an impact on the cybercrime landscape. And this research, this tracking, this investigating helped us to collect a lot of intelligence and a lot of information about fraudsters, about scammers, and about cyber criminals in general. With this knowledge, we could then develop a tool which can not only detect those cyber criminals, those scammers and fraudsters, but also deliver additional information, additional context, indicators, which can be also used for investigations afterwards. The second part of our ecosystem I would like to mention is intelligence. Many of you know that we have a very sophisticated cyber threat intelligence product. And this product was developed over so many years. We have internally a lot of internal tools who are supporting it. For intelligence, we collect information about cyber criminals again, about nation-state attackers, malware, TTPs, criminal infrastructure and how criminal infrastructure is being set up and many more things. For this, of course, we need internal tools, internal monitoring tools, data collection tools, and also tools to work all the data which we are collecting. And those tools come in very handy for the DRP team as well. The DRP team who needs to collect information about infrastructure, who needs to monitor effectively, who needs to work on attribution, and many things which are in common with our cyber threat intelligence tool. Last but not least, I would like to talk about anti-fraud as well, our client-side facing anti-fraud solution, which we call Fraud Hunting Platform. A fraud hunting platform is protecting users in their portal experience, in their e-portal experience. And there we are defending from social engineering attacks, malware attacks, botting, account takeovers, credential stuffing, and name it. It's a lot of things. And this experience from the anti-fraud area, from the client-side anti-fraud area, is of course also very useful in the cooperation with our DRP team. But after talking so much, let us better show what we have built.
Okay, that was the list of those models and I would say approaches that we gathered under the roof of digital risk protection. Let's look in more details at each of those. So speaking about anti-scam, here we cover lots of issues related to different types of scams, fraud, phishing, trademark misuse, and so on. Again, one important tip here. Previously, when I explained what is phishing and what is scams, I mentioned one thing, that phishing is trying to intercept your login password bunches and also credit card data. And basically, according to the ICANN website, for instance, there is a definition which means that if the issue should be treated like a phishing one, there are two major points that should have happened. The first one is that this should be a copy of a legitimate website. Okay, sure, it is done, so we have this one. Secondly, yeah, this means that also this website at this page should be process the interception of user sensitive data like login password bunches or credit card data. From the enforcement perspective, there are lots of old school phishing issues nowadays. However, lots of new ones are appearing, and those are mostly classified like scams, cause. What did the fraudsters do? They just removed the second stage. They are creating a pretty good and a pretty good looking and pretty similar to the original website page, but they don't try to intercept your sensitive data. They only ask you to leave your contact details, like your email or your mobile phone number. And after that, they will reach out to you directly via those channels. So sometimes you will get a phishing link within your WhatsApp messenger or email. Sometimes you will be asked to chat with somebody and that person will try to interact with you directly and also will try to take money from you. These would be treated as scams. But the first one, when you get a phishing link, for us means phishing. However, it doesn't mean so for the regulators. So the major idea of anti-scam is to avoid these troubles for the customer, to avoid this division whether this is scam or this is phishing and what is going on. So you don't need to care about this. You don't need to be such deep specialist in this field. So we're covering everything: scams, phishing, and so on. Of course, we cover those monitoring different platforms, different sources like advertising networks, both social media and also contextual ones. And also we cover fake mobile applications. Here also an important tip that we cover not only the white stores like App Store and Google Play, but also we do cover the gray ones. And this is also extremely important because while a fraudster is just preparing a fraudulent campaign, he or she may place a modified version of a mobile application or even a self-made version of a mobile application mentioning your brand somewhere on a gray store. And after that, this link will be spread all over the internet, keen to grab traffic and suggesting some benefits like, hey guys, we have renewed our bank's mobile application. Please follow the link, just renew the mobile application and you will get some benefits, like maybe increased cashback, maybe some extra miles to your airline's account, and so on. Then, speaking about anti-counterfeiting, as I've already mentioned, there are different types of counterfeit that may happen online. And here we also are keen to help with everything that could be really done online, starting from illegal sales of goods on the internet, grey imports, and also up to breaches of partnership agreements. This mostly relates to some things when distributors are trying to make dumping in local regions. But you should really treat with these issues very carefully, because according to some local laws, for instance in Russia, CIS, and some European regions, this is prohibited by local regulators. So if it is prohibited, that means that nothing can be done here. Then we have anti-piracy, and yes, so starting from different types of movies and TV series protection, whatever they can be found, up to different types of content like books, newspapers, articles, and music. I would say the most interesting for now thing are online streams, because there are lots of different sports companies, sports events, sports games that are happening now without any attendees during these 2 pandemic years, which means that the entire audience is trying to watch these events fully online. And this also means that pirates, they are really aware of this. Yep, so they're trying to capture this traffic. They are trying to capture these people. So this is extremely also important nowadays. Then, speaking about leak detection, you may ask me, hey, Dmitry, but this is mostly covered by threat intelligence products. Yes, and you're totally right. But while we're talking about digital risks and threat intelligence, this means that for using a mature threat intelligence product, you really need to have a strong team of, I would say, highly skilled, even threat hunters under the roof of your company. Because it is not possible to investigate something. It is not possible to do intelligence without special people. But while we're talking about some entrance level of leaks, yep, some public leaks, which are happening on code repositories, which are happening maybe in dark web, and so on, this means that this entrance level should be provided should be provided for any companies, for companies of just every size, without paying attention whether they have the threat intelligence team or not. And that's why we made a special thing for companies which ones even don't have their special threat intelligence team. And we are really keen to provide them with detection of credentials, code repositories, and other types of sensitive data. Then we have also VIP protection. And again, your VIPs are a really important thing nowadays, because they're influencers and people are really following them. So if your VIP in a social network mentions something maybe not quite good or illegitimate at all, this means that it will immediately affect your company. So fighting against fake accounts on social media is extremely important for the first. And secondly, you also need to provide your VIPs with, I would say, digital checkups. This means that the internet has like 3 major levels: the web surface, the gray web, and the dark web. And you really need to look through all these 3 major levels, and you really need to try to figure out what is happening within those in relation to your top-level executives. This also could be done by our solution. Okay, for now let's jump into the things that are happening under the hood. The major workflow is divided basically into 3 main points: monitoring, detection, and taking down. So speaking about monitoring, we designed the solution in that way, trying to gather all the possible sources which are, I would say, the mostly important nowadays within the internet, trying to analyze all of those, starting from domain names, phishing and fraudulent databases, search engines, mobile application stores, online classifieds, different types of advertising networks, both social media and contextual ones, and even deep and dark web. So all the data that can be found within these sources afterward is being processed, is being analyzed. And for this, we designed a really strong bunch of cutting-edge features, of cutting-edge technologies that are keen to provide you with the best practices, with the best quality of detection. Starting from special neural-based detection families. So we have like two of those. The first one is responsible for analyzing different images, so to detect a trademark, to recognize the text from the page, and so on. And the second one is also responsible for so-called point of interest detection. What do we mean? What do we assume by this point of interest detection? This means that this neural network family, the second one, acts like a real user, like a real analyst, trying to figure out what is happening on this particular page and whether this particular page can be infringing your brand. Then we have our network graph, which was designed by the entire team of analysts and professionals at Group IB. So this is a really must-have tool for building different types of attribution, for providing quick researches, investigations, and so on. Also, while we are doing a really large monitoring, finding lots of pages, domain names, links, and so on, we'll need to somehow prioritize those. For this, we have a self-adjustable scoring, and I'm going to explain how this works a bit later during the sneaky peek into the portal. Then we have auto-attribution. So this is extremely important for all threat intelligence products, and we suppose that also for digital risk protection too. And all the most modern approaches designed by our threat intelligence team are implemented also for digital risk protection. Then we have scam intelligence, because, threat intelligence is something really for grown-ups, but when we're looking day by day for different types of scams, for the past 2 years, we see that the major part of those are spreading by similar groups, by similar people, by the same people. This means that they also need to be investigated in their proper way. And the last but not the least, the ecosystem of Group IB products. So this is extremely beneficial because we're using the entire knowledge, the entire expertise, and every time we're trying to develop something new, we're trying to do it together with our colleagues, and it always works perfect. So the third is taken down. After detecting lots of things within the internet with a very high level of success rate, we need to do something with this. So this is very, very simple. Speaking about the takedowns, we have two major approaches. We need to block the resource itself, and then we need to minimize its impact. So we need to block the traffic. We need to avoid users that may face with this link on the internet. So for instance, you may deal with Google, and Google will set up a banner for this particular website. So as soon as we're talking not only about phishing issues, but also different types of other trademark misuse, there is a huge gap between them, because as soon as phishing is a well-recognized worldwide problem, there are lots of CERT teams, there are lots of special regulators trying to deal with this issue. But for the rest part of trademark misuse types, there are nothing. And this means that if you have your own CERT team, as we do, and if you have set up enough relationships with all the CERT teams around the world, you will be enough successful to block this particular phishing issue just within a couple of minutes. But while speaking about the rest part of their trademark misuse, it really takes time sometimes, from a couple of hours to a couple of days. And during this time, you need to be ensured that the audience that can face with this particular violation, this particular issue, is also secured. So this means that you really need to start these two approaches at the very moment when you detect the issue.
Hey Dima, that's a lot of talking. Let's better have a look at the platform itself and see how it looks like.
Agreed, Kamil.
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, let's kick off with the first thing that everyone can see after logging in, the main dashboard. At Group IB, we clearly understand that our solution should suit two major users' patterns. The first one is a highly skilled technical specialist, and the second are business people. All of us clearly understand that the formats of providing info for these audiences are extremely different. We made lots of discussions with our clients and partners. Thus, the model format of the dashboard was born. Now it consists of the must-have widgets underlining all the key business points. In advance, we'll definitely sit together with our partners and friends and we'll design much more cool widgets suiting different needs.
Sounds cool. But let's have a look at what we actually have. I'm looking at the first widget, for example. May you share some details about it and what is the scoring actually about?
Sure. So, during its everyday work, the solution checks dozens of pages and domain names. So, we need to somehow measure the common danger level. This is the average risk scoring which was calculated according to the results we have for each of those 12,000 links.
Okay. And is this figure actually high?
Actually, it depends on a company, industry, and also a region. So you need to make the first digital checkup, and afterward it will be clear. As for this exact 40%, I would say it is rather high. So this company surely needs to start cleaning its digital presence.
Okay, Dima. Let's have a look at the other widgets as well, please. And then if we could jump into a real use case, that would be cool.
Oh, yep, sure. So the next is the very clear and basic one, the activity level. We show here the entire issue's lifecycle metrics, from the very beginning when it appears within the solution and up to the moment it is getting resolved.
Okay, Dima. And how can we have a look on some real violations detected by the platform?
Oh, so, yep, here it is. The resources identified widget. This is extremely important when you are dealing with any types of trademark misuse, that you need to look and to approve some of those, because, if we're talking about phishing, so this is quite transparent, but sometimes for trademark misuse issues, customers want to make approvals from their side, and it is very easily possible out of this widget. You may just click on the row to see the details and also to mark the violation as rejected or approved.
Okay, that's very cool. And what about the widget on the left side? I see a couple of detects there, but they don't really look like violations, phishing, scam, or anything.
Oh, yes, exactly. When you've detected a phishing or scam, it is, of course, univocally critical. However, at the same moment, there exists lots of non-scamming platforms, but anyway, having lots of issues on their pages. This is what we also need to highlight for our customers, to draw their attention to such platforms and maybe to build a complex strategy for dealing with those.
Okay, great. So we have a lot of useful information here on this dashboard and some very cool features. But you also wanted to show a real case. Could we have a look at that?
Definitely. So, here it is. This story started a couple of months ago at the very beginning of April. Together with the United Nations International Computing Center, we discovered a bunch of scamming websites that were promoted within social media advertising networks. Those were suggesting to pass a survey on behalf of the World Health Organization and to take a chance winning something afterward. In some cases, sports goods were suggested, in some taxes to funding, and so on. So it depended only on the mind of the fraudster. As you may see, the domain names were similar to anything except the World Health Organization. But let's look at the details. Let's look more precisely on the process, on the work that was done by our analyst and by the solution itself. Let's start from the very interesting and my beloved website from this bunch, youareSoLucky.live. So, as you may see, we found it at the very evening of the 7th of April, and occasionally the 7th of April is also the Worldwide Health Day. So this is quite also interesting. The domain name was found via a social media advertising network, and we also collected the digital evidence, so the screenshot, the .html file, and also some information about the things and the params, how this particular domain name was checked. So you may see this is the survey. Some people are asked to pass it, and also here are some comments that somebody already refunded some money and so on. So this is it. Let's look more precisely at the triggers. So for the first, we have this logo risk scoring. It shows the calculation made by our neural network family responsible for text and logo recognition. And you may see that, yes, these captured the WHO logo. The second one is the unique scoring, the domain name risk scoring, which is calculated strictly without paying attention to anything besides how the domain name was registered. Let's look at the details of this scoring. So you may see that the domain name age is quite low, so this is even less than 1 month. So this is like the first thing that we need to pay attention to. And then we have the name registrar, who is not, I would say, trustful from our perspective, because we have a really broad range of communication with this particular domain name registrar, and during any issues related not to phishing, they really prefer to take some time. Okay, so next, the certificate, it is valid, it is not self-written, it looks legitimate, great. The number of branches in the sitemap is 0. So this is, I would say, the first thing. The second thing that is rather strange, because we have a real page here displayed in the solution. The second one is the main page length. It is also 0, and these two things are also showing us that somebody is trying to hide from our eyes the real scheme. So this particular link is started and works only for like few minutes, starting from 5 up to 10, and this means that if you're not lucky to get this page during this period, you won't have any chance to prove to the regulator that something illegitimate happened on these pages. So the third one is the general risk scoring. It combines the results of the first two scorings and also includes the results that are calculated by the second grade neural network family that is responsible for, how we call it, the point of interest calculation. It acts like a real analyst based on dozens of params, and it tries to figure out if these issues looks like something strange or not. And here you may see the analyzing page is not okay at all. So then we have the domain name registrar info, the hosting provider, and also, if it is possible, we collect some data related to how the administrator of the website can be contacted too. So then we have the resource analysis details, and here is also information about the way how this particular violation was checked. It is also important because, as I already mentioned, as soon as you collect everything, what is called the digital evidence, and use it during the takedown process with the regulator, this is extremely helpful. And now it's time to go even deeper. So at the very start of our discussion about the Group IB ecosystem, we mentioned that we have a huge network graph which was designed by the entire team of Group IB, and here it is. So it is extremely beneficial when you make such analysis. So we can see here you are so lucky.live, and also you may see that there are lots of different connections related to this particular domain name. So I'm not going to dive into too much details. Let's just look at the pure things that were captured by their solution and that are really needed to be looked at. So here you may see that the domain name, which is connected to the youareSoLucky.live, is not even similar to the World Health Organization, and moreover, it even pretending to be a page related to one of huge brands. But while checking this one, you may see that again we have here the World Health Organization scam. So, using these attribution techniques, analyzing the metrics of how the domain names were registered, making and providing a huge monitoring via social media advertising networks, we captured the entire bunch of portals that were distributed at that moment, and it consists of 135 domain names, and afterward we successfully took down the entire network. So this is extremely important when you are trying to defeat scams, counterfeiting, piracy, phishing. You need to use the same approach. You need to research, to investigate, to attribute, and to eliminate. So, and this is it.
Thank you very much. Very cool case.
So, this was a sneak peek into the solution itself based on a real case. And here is also our statement that was designed to suit all the customers' needs, to cover all the risks, and to provide with a real maximum high success rate of protection. So we combine our highly skilled, internationally spread analysts with a platform that was designed for both business purposes and analysts. Also, we suggest a unique enforcement approach for each type of violation that can happen to your company. Also, the DRP platform itself, this is a really strong platform. This is not just a tool. A team of customer success managers that can maintain and ask all of your questions whenever you need this. And the last, again but not the least, the protection is continuous. It is not disrupted even on some holidays, weekends, and so on. It is also done 24 hours, 7 days a week. So this is it. These are the key points of an effective solution.
Okay, very nice. Let's get back to speakers. Today we have the pleasure to actually welcome speakers here on our stage. Let me welcome Lalit and Marion from ABN AMRO. Lalit and Marion are leading the intelligence and brand protection teams at ABN AMRO. They will tell us their vision on what they have built at ABN AMRO to tackle the latest threats.
Thank you very much, Kamil, for the nice introductions. So, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. So, we are going to talk more about the brand protection and intelligence, focus and multiply, which is basically our topic for today, Vitent. And here we're going to discuss more about these disciplines, like how we actually use this in our organization to increase our cybersecurity resilience. So, my name is Lalit Bhakuni. I am heading up the Global Cyber Intelligence Center in ABN AMRO Bank. And I'm into this field from past 14 years, landed up in ABN AMRO in 2018 and started the intelligence functions. Together with me, Marion is here.
Thank you, Lalit. I'm Marion Leggedoor, and as product owner responsible for online brand protection. I have 15 years in experience in media and channels, and 2 years ago I made the switch within ABN AMRO from the communication side to the cyber side of channels and protecting them.
Thank you very much, Marion. Okay, so whenever we talk about the brand protection, and the things comes in it like, okay, how it is being handled in a typical organization, like in a financial industry. The prime example is, or the prime answer is SOC, Security Operations Centers. We also do it in the same way. So I will tell you more about the situation we had it back in the days, which is like 3 years ago in 2018. So we had it in SOC, everything what we are doing it as a part of cyber resilience in SOC. Either it is doing the threat intelligence part of it, gathering day-to-day base, new attack vectors, phishing campaigns, or any type of a phishing email which is received by our customers, and everything was landed up in a SOC. And also a SOC have also other things to do, like high fidelity incident. So there's so much to do, but with a little time of it. So although the energy was there, but due to the time constraint and due to the focus, things are not getting into the shape. And there was like a kind of a high intention of time which are not being put it on this phishing part of it, where we actually miss a lot of identifiable details which can be used to our cyber resilience, and also to find it out who are our adversaries and what they are doing it, how they are actually attacking our customers. What can we do about them? Can't we stop them? Something like that. So all these questions were popped up back in the time, and then we thought like, okay, yeah, why not create some more synergies and do some or let's say segregate these tasks in a different teams, but at the same time do not make any solos, because you know that when you have solos, there is always a problem, there is always a conflict. So that was a challenge for us. So back in 2018, as I said, like, okay, I have also joined myself ABN AMRO Bank in 2018. We started up a department called Global Cyber Intelligence Center, which sits within the CISO, which is the Corporate Information Security Office. And then we have one small sort of a grid, which is responsible for increasing the cyber resilient day-to-day risk monitoring, which we called as an operation and intelligence. So this department is being set up as to understand what is basically out there, what kind of new threats are popping up which can actually impact our brand, our name into it. And here is go, the intelligence has the answer. But intelligence has main focus on finding the adversaries and see like, okay, what they actually do with it, and how they actually how they can actually hamper our brand into it, and also how they can attack ourselves and also our customers. But then again, there is one more problem is with the time constraint. How do we do the analysis and how we take the real actions in terms of doing the brand protection? Because normally brand protection also required a significant amount of time to do a proper follow-up and the other things. There it goes, the next one, which is the OBPP, which Marion will tell you more about it.
Yeah, so a little bit over a year later, we found out that the protection of our brand can have a lot more attention and therefore have more impact on our security. So mainly we focus on phishing, but one of the other goals that we had is that also it's not only about our main brand, ABN AMRO. We have many other brands like Tikkie, the Alfam Group. We have different countries. Why aren't we keeping them secure? They all are in the same container of CISO. They should also have their brand protection. And before, it was pretty simple, just analyze all the data, take the sites down. But we really want to move more upfront. How can we be smarter? Use that intelligence, but also do things quicker and easier. And again, with the silos, we had lots of different people working on that. So we had people from the SOC really on our mailbox and the takedown. We had domain specialists always making sure that the other safety marks are done, like DMARC, DNSSEC. And we had our developers that were putting everything together. So with the emergence of the online brand and phishing protection, we put all those experts together, some full-time, some part-time, and really every day we work on that brand protection side. And that's actually, especially what we want to take you through in this journey is on our first case that a lot of those different people work together. In the beginning of March, we had a really interesting smishing incident, which we want to take you along. I just told you a little bit about my team. Well, there's also a part-time analyst from the SOC working in the online brand protection team. And so we share a lot of information on what is going on. And one of the SOC analysts noticed a really particular incident. He started with one of the URLs and he noticed, hey, there's something going on. It's taking a little bit longer than usually to take it down. Why is it not reported? What is behind it? And what he found out that there was a smishing campaign going on, leading to what you see on the right, to a false internet banking site, of course. But not everybody could actually reach that site. So if the register would, check if the finding was really phishing, they would find out nothing at all, because the fraudsters, did some special little things like only accessible via Dutch IP address, mobile user agents, and the more we are investigating, of course, also blocking some URLs. So that really triggered with us, okay, lots of different things are going on. We need to ask our threat intelligence team. And we went to Lalit.
Yeah, so as we said, we hate actually to work in silos, and that is the prime motto, and that is the motivation and the factor which is basically not in our team, but in the whole department of our CISO, which is Corporate Information Security Office. So as soon as it has been captured, so Marion teams flagged it, hey, look, there is something going around in it. So from intelligence cycle of it, what we always try to see, we try to contextualize the data, means that try to see that is this a campaign specific to ABN? Or is it something is very generic outside of it, and this type of adversary is targeting every other bank of it? But looking at the URLs and the way they actually been set up, it looks like that this is a particular kind of a framework which has been specifically developed for ABN and is for its customers to attract them. And as we see the first wave which we have seen earlier in the March, and then the second one we have seen in the 16th of March, then basically the TLD in this case has been changed. So from the Intel side of it, we get more information particularly on this attacker, and by studying his infrastructure, based upon link it with the other banks or something, if the other banks also see it, or in what quantity they have seen it, either it is also the same, the way the attacker, they have attacked our customers, or whether there was a different modus operandi. So as soon as we get all those sort of details, we contextualize it and properly format it, and we discuss with Marion's teams and our security operation teams in terms of future actions. Now we know enough about this particular campaign, what sort of actions need to be done. So Marion's team takes some actions. And you're going to talk more about it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, because Lalit in the beginning already explained a little bit our position with ABN AMRO. But as you might have figured out, that doesn't mean that we cover the whole fraud chain. So that means the actual customer interaction, maybe fraudulent transactions that happened. So we have lots of other departments that interact with us on fraud, or in this specific case, phishing. And with all those colleagues, my other stakeholders, then I present them the case, what is going on, what do we feel that we need to do. And for example, in this case, you see the text message below. It was a significant campaign we learned from Lalit, so we decided to also inform our customers by putting some extra information on our website. The example you can find to the right. Yeah, and so from this case, we also want to look forward, of course. What do we do this year and next year? Well, what we saw is that this case is a really good example on how we work on ad hoc basis with each other, but we also want to ground it even more. So one of the things that came out of it is that within the online brand protection team, we have our 3-weekly meeting to really deep dive into our notice and takedown processes and outcomes and data. And now somebody from the intelligence team is actually joining that meeting, making it even a more intense and better refinement for everybody. And Lalit, what are your thoughts on the next year?
Yes, thank you very much, Marion. I think I have the same key takeaways into this, because our talk was basically on focus and multiply. And as your team is putting a lot of effort into this, from our Intel side of it, we are always at your disposal to make sure that at least we can provide you that contextualized data to make sure that, okay, we have enriched data to take more and more actions. Either it is being like in a triage situation or take more actions. This is what we are there for you. So this is us basically. Today we talked about the focus and multiply, basically on the brand protection of it, how we are using in our organization. If you guys have any sort of a question on it, feel free to reach us either by LinkedIn or by other sources. Meanwhile, take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marion and Lalit. It was such a pleasure to have you here. And thank you for all the insights you have given us on how you're separating responsibilities in your team and how you then can focus on what is really important for your members. This was very insightful. Thanks a lot for that. And now we will continue with our next guest speaker from World Vision International, who will share with us use cases of DRP. Let me introduce Meg S. Miller, please. Hello, Meg. Thanks for joining us today. How is everything in Singapore?
And greetings from Singapore. How's everybody doing there? I hope you're all okay. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to share World Vision's journey as far as digital risk protection is concerned. Let me start by introducing what we do. Well, World Vision International is a non-profit organization. And when we say our promise for vulnerable children is really going out there, doing the best to vulnerable children around the world so they can have the fullness of life. Okay. So just a little bit about who we are. We're in around 100 plus countries. We have around 34,000 staff worldwide, and we operate in almost every context in every, country that there's help that need to be done. Okay. And even the toughest ones. Okay. Our work, we do a lot of things. We develop communities. We help children go to school. We also very much active in disaster scenarios, humanitarian scenarios, even in conflict scenarios around the world. So we always say if there's a major disaster in the world or a major conflict, if people need help, we're gonna be there. Okay. As far as myself, again, as a CISO of World Vision International, these are the things that I do to aligned with our promise. As we say, our promise is to support, protect the most vulnerable. So how do we do that? A lot of people will ask me, how does cybersecurity do that? Well, if you protect people's data, people who you protect, remember that data represents people, and assets are also very important to people. I say this, if your brand is damaged, it's possible the trust of your sponsors, beneficiaries, and your donors can also be compromised. So protecting your brand is very important to ensure that, people you protect and people that you support, have, this particular opportunity. It's really lost opportunity if your brand is damaged somehow and you lose the trust and confidence of your donors, sponsors, and beneficiaries. So one of the things that we really love about digital risk protection is that we can always, in my world, tie it to benefit of our stakeholders or the people that we work with. So by protecting our digital footprint, one, we're protecting employees who work so hard to make things happen. We're protecting sponsors and donors who give us their love and their support. And we're protecting the beneficiaries as well. Okay. So what's the important thing about what we do as far as digital risk protection is concerned? Backtrack a bit 3-4 years ago. We know that we need to protect our brand. In certain places in the world, we suffer a lot of brand abuse. Like people would post job openings using our name. People would set up fundraising campaign using our names as well. And in many cases, people would go to social media using our name as well to gather membership from people in social media. So we said, hey, we need to detect these infringements. We can do this manually. We can go to every social media sites around the world, but I don't have a big team. I got a team of not more than 12 people. So we have to be lean. We have to be fast. So we have to find a partner who can help us. We need to monitor the digital footprint, and it's a huge footprint. I always say, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. It's like there's that dark side of the moon, right? And who could help you with that? You don't want to have blind spots. So you need to minimize your blind spots and increase your visibility. Now you need to find a good partner for that. If you're able to detect infringements, if you're able to monitor your digital footprint, what's the next thing to do? Of course, if you see some abuses, you find out that these abuses are real, you need to respond. You need to take down, illegitimate use of your resources. And that could take so much of your time when you're doing it by yourself. So again, you need a good partner to do that. So we partnered with Group IB a little more than 8 months ago. And in that 8 months, statistically wise, Group IB detected and took down over 50 fake social media accounts and over 30 fake mobile apps in 30 countries in the 5 continents that we are present. So for 8 months, I would say that's impressive. I even talked to the lawyers and communications and marketing people in our organization, and they tell me sometimes they take down something, it took them months to take down. But with Group IB, we can take down quite a number of fake assets or fake entities in social media, and also in different platforms in the internet in a rather, better time than we used to do when we do it manually. So what's in it then? Well, I see this really as, in World Vision, we say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes also together, I believe, to protect vulnerable children, right? So finding the right partner, finding the right people who understand your mission, who thinks that they can contribute to your mission is very important. So, technically, I can say there's a huge volume of detection. We really leverage in, I would say, three digital principles: core to crowd, right? I believe Group IB has a core of good people, but also leverage on threat intelligence and resources, data-driven resources out there, in the internet. I also see them as, capitalizing, I would say, mind to machine. They have experts, but also use machine learning, artificial intelligence to combine human intelligence with machine learning and artificial intelligence. And that's what I call also product to platform. They don't just sell you a product. They sell you a platform. It's really an environment that is so comprehensive that you can even say, hey, this works for me. And for all you know it, the platform opens opportunities for you for other types of capabilities as well. So at the end of the day, okay, we have also a principle in my organization: be safe online. Safer user experience for our external parties and internal parties. Trust, confidence, and thereby really, people seeing the value of what we do. One time when I was talking to the folks in Group IB in Singapore, I told them, $1 I spend on technology is $1 I take out from children, right? So they understand that. They know that every dollar should count. So I really think this relationship with Group IB, so far we love what they do and how they contribute to our mission.
Thank you very much, Mac, for your presentation and your contribution to this event. All those insights from Singapore are very, very valuable for the community everywhere around the globe. Let's now move swiftly to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Bojan Simitic. Bojan is a leading information security specialist at the UNICC, the United Nations International Computing Center. Bojan will today talk about a shared threat intelligence service which he is developing for the UN family. Bojan, please, go ahead.
Hello everyone, my name is Bojan Simitic and I have been working for UNICC for almost last 4 years as an information security specialist in a capacity of service lead for a shared threat intelligence program for the UN family called Common Secure. First, allow me to say something about who we are as UNICC. International Computing Center has been providing ICT services to the UN family and not-for-profit international organizations for past 50 years. Actually, we just celebrated 50 years this year. UNICC's technology services optimize and secure digital business solutions to generate economies of scale for our 70 plus clients and partner organizations, including World Health Organization, which is specifically important in this case. What is Common Secure Threat Intelligence Service? Common Secure is tasked to share the timely, relevant, and actionable cybersecurity threat and incident information with goal to enhance the UN's ability to prepare for, respond to, and mitigate risks associated with cyber threats. As of now, we have been supporting 30 UN organizations, UN and UN-like partnering organizations, which are actually partners in a development of sustainable development goals. What we keep saying is that Common Secure is maybe not the best, actually it is not the best cyber threat intelligence service in the world, but we bet that we are one of the most relevant cyber threat intelligence services for the UN family. So, dealing with all these, supporting all these partners in Sustainable Development Goals delivery, so-called SDGs, Question is, what are main digital threats that we as the UN are facing? And having in mind all sorts of organizations that we are supporting, we dare to say that it would be all kinds of them, which are ultimately leading to a loss of trust by our partners and beneficiaries, actually, and their beneficiaries. So, what are sustainable development goals? There are 17 sustainable development goals, so-called SDGs, and just looking at those 17 will give you a hint of scams that we are facing. Basically, frequency of relevant scams is on a daily basis because landscape for those scams, which are usually targeting the most vulnerable people, is enormous. Just one, in this specific occasion, we will speak of just one SDG, which is Sustainable Development Goal number 3, Global Action Plan for Healthy Lives and Well-being for All, which is primarily related to World Health Organization's mission. In general, all SDGs are somehow related to this specific one because they are all intended to support lives of endangered ones. So, speaking of World Health Organization, we cannot not to mention recent activity performed jointly by UNICC Common Security Team and specifically Group IB's team. Thank you a lot for this great help. Basically, World Health Day we celebrate in April, and the Group IP team approached the UNICC as a trusted partner for the UN, asking if we can cooperate and work together closely to dealing with this scam. It was based as initially detected, it was just a basic scam, which posed like simple survey promising financial incentives for those who are filling in, and most importantly, sharing this fake survey with friends and families. This has nothing to do with education, but actually it is targeting just all type of vulnerable people around the world globally. So the moment when Group IB actually started investigating it deep down, we realized that this was just tip of the iceberg, and it was a great feeling when we discovered Group IB actually discovered more than 130 fake domains impersonating World Health Day being used actively in this scam. Furthermore, infrastructure utilized was associated with many other scams, but that's not topic now. So it was a great feeling to actually have support of Group IB in dealing with these threat actors abusing our World Health Day and targeting the most vulnerable beneficiaries. So thank you, Group IB, for this help, for this great help, and it was a great feeling to actually retaliate a bit against them, to see that we raised the bar for them, uh, forcing them eventually to move away from this scam and inflicting additional costs to them, if nothing else. So thank you very much and good luck.
Bojan, thank you very much for this presentation. It's exciting to see how you're merging intelligence and DRP in your organization and how those two go hand in hand to tackle latest threats.
Let me join the party, please, Kevin.
Okay, introduce a speaker too.
Thank you so much. So, let me introduce Professor Yuri Abraham, who is the Managing Director of E-Commerce Foundation. And also, Yuri is managing a very interesting and useful initiative called Scam Advisor. So at Scam Advisor, they're fighting against different types of scams, trying to educate people, trying to get together the huge companies, the small brands, and just everyone to tackle down these types of issues. So, Yuri, the floor is yours. Please, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Camille. Thank you, Dimitri. As said, my name is George Abraham. I run the E-Commerce Foundation, and one of our biggest and most important initiatives is scamadvisor.com. What we are trying to achieve with scamadvisor.com is to protect consumers from getting scammed. Maybe a brief introduction of what our service does is you can go to Scamadvisor, you can enter a domain name, and on the fly we check about 40 different data sources to see if a website is either legit or a scam. And we get about 100,000 consumers daily checking if a website is legit or a fraud. And we scan about 1 million new domains every month. It's an incredible number, and yeah, it's incredible to see how fast scams are growing. How our algorithm works is, as I said, we check about 40 different data sources, and based on that we give a trust score between 100 being very, very likely legit and 1 being very likely a fraud. And we check company data, website data, technical data, but we're also more and more using artificial intelligence to see if the website is malicious or not. So that's enough about what we do as an association. Maybe taking a little bit a step back, what are scams? It's often, sometimes for consumers, very difficult to see. If you go to review sites like Trustpilot or SiteJabber, you see that Apple.com and ASOS get terrible scores, but they're of course not a scam. Where we focus on with Scam Advisor is really all types of online scams. So not so necessary malware or phishing, but really all the other malicious websites there are in the world. So dating scams, cryptocurrency scams, online shops not delivering, or online stores selling fakes. What we see a lot happening is that scammers do deliver a product. It's just not the product you ordered. It's a fake, it's a rip-off, or even a product which is hardly related to the product you ordered. Some scams, you would say, are obvious, but we get tens of emails a week about this website asking, people asking, is this now legit or is it a scam? Others are much more difficult to distinguish. In our experience, everybody can get scammed. We call it also pig butchering, meaning scammers really take the time 3 months, 6 months, maybe even up to a year before they scam a person. And in that period, they gain trust, they build a relationship, sometimes a romantic relationship, otherwise being your best friend forever until you've paid the money, and of course then they're gone. And this kind of making the pig fat is especially used for cryptocurrency scams and forex trading scams, where people not lose 10 euros or 100 euros, but 10,000 euros or even 2 million euros. What we also see in the market happening is that scammers are becoming more and more professional. It's not that a scammer has one website. No, most scammers we see on the internet have hundreds of websites, and often also hundreds of companies. So for example, uniqueness, we received on Scam Advisor alone more than 400 complaints, but they also have more than 400 websites. So it's really scammers are setting up kind of factory work. They also are getting more and more experience in proving that they're legit. So they're on the website, they're warning consumers that don't fall for that scam, we are the only one who is legit. Or they have set up a certification body. For example, the IFMRRC is offering a trust certificate financial companies can place on their website. But in this case, we've discovered that most of these websites are actually scams. So we suspect that this website actually has been set up by scammers to give other scam sites legitimacy. And scammers are also spending money. Malavat was set up in a few weeks. It spent more than 3 million euros on advertising on Google, and then it closed down. And of course, it never delivered the product, and they made a huge sale in that period. And once you're scammed, then the scam continues. What we see more and more happening is that consumers are getting approached by so-called delivery companies saying that, hey, I've got your package here, but I cannot ship it to you because you have to pay customs or VAT or even environmental tax or an insurance fee before I can deliver it to you. And of course, the consumer pays, expecting that then finally his product will arrive, but it never arrives, and you have to pay another fee and another fee until you become suspicious and no longer pay. And then the next scam continues, because what we also see is that scam victims are shared on the dark web on so-called donkey lists. And once you're on a donkey list, you get approached by so-called recovery firms advising you that they can help you recover your money. And of course, in theory, it's possible to get your money back. In practice, the chance of getting your money back is less than 0.01%, meaning you have to pay another company to help you get your money back. Some are legit in the sense that they try. Most are not legit and are just scamming you and ripping you off again. So what we wanted to know as e-commerce foundation is how big are scams now really globally? And last year we did an analysis of more than 41 countries to see how they are fighting scams, how much money is lost, how many scams are reported. And I have to say that the data I'm showing you is a little bit related to the quote of Mark Twain, there are lies, damn lies and statistics. That's certainly the case for this study we did among 31 countries. Because the data is very different per country. Each country has its own definition of what is a scam, its own measurements, so it's difficult to compare. What we did learn is that scams are definitely global, they're universal, but each country has its own preference in the way it wants to get scammed. I mean, in China, we see a lot of scams around gaming, so of virtual swords and skins, etc. In Indonesia, we see a lot of music downloads, and also in Mexico, where people think they can cheaply download movies and they lose their credit card details. So every country has its own preference, but scams are definitely universal. What we also learned from the study is that scams are growing phenomenally. It depends strongly per country. But on average, countries report last year a 30% increase in the number of scams, making scams and online fraud the most reported crime to police forces. And this is interesting because from another study we know that only 7% of the consumers actually report a scam to the police. I think apart from the fact that it's in most countries already the most reported type of scam or of crime, it's still underestimated. What we did is we summarized all the reported amounts lost from the different countries and made a guesstimate based on the total amount. And the total amount lost on scams last year we estimate to be about 36 billion euros. For this year we expect a growth of more than 40%, of course due to the corona epidemic. And still, because only 7% of all the consumers actually report the crime, we think that the 36 billion euros lost is actually an underestimation of the total amount being lost. My biggest concern is that scammers seem to be winning. We see a clear shift from criminals working in the offline market to the online market. The offline market is saturated. You have to invest quite a lot, and there's a high chance of getting caught. Well, online e-commerce is booming. It's very cheap to set up a website, and the chances of arrest are very low. Coming back to scams are actually really cheap. I mean, it's free to advertise on Facebook. An SSL certificate is free, and most consumers still think that an SSL certificate means that the website is safe. And you can set up a website on Shopify also for free. And if you want to do a more advanced scam, like perpetrating as a bank or offering an investment website, which looks really professional, for 99 euros, you can buy an investment banking site and start to scam people. In addition, what we see is that it really pays to scam, because the chances of getting caught are very, very small. 33% of all crime now reported in the UK is related to online fraud. And of those 33% cases, only 2.5% of all cases are actually prosecuted. Doesn't mean you get behind bars, it goes to court. The question is if the criminal also goes behind bars. So how can we turn the tide? I think that the real way to turn the tide is by having internet providers, hosting companies, registrars, registries do a better know your customer process. We've seen that with the Danish registry. They determined that in 2017 about 6% of their websites were selling fake products. In 2018 they made it mandatory that if you want to get a .dk website, Danish website, you have to show a kind of ID. And within 1 year, the number of online stores selling fakes in Denmark dropped with 85%. I do not think it's the solution, however. What we see, for example, happening in the UK is that for £12 you can set up a company, and you can even register a company like Test. For a few pounds more, you get a formal document, you get a phone number in London and an address. And finally, you can advertise for free on Google. Meaning it's very, very easy to set up a company. And we also discovered that scammers, to create legitimacy, they're setting up a company in London, and then they start a website. And for the normal consumer, it's very difficult to determine if it's a scam or not. So how do we try to fight scams with Scam Advisor? Our goal is to share as much knowledge and data between countries and companies, because we believe that the only way we can actually win from scammers is by sharing data. Because a scammer usually never ever works in his own country. He always scams across the border with 200 or 300 different websites across 80 countries. So the only way to identify scams quickly is by sharing data and using that data to fuel an algorithm like Scam Advisor to identify scams very quickly. For that, we're working together with a lot of law enforcement, brand protection agencies, and I'm also very happy to say that Group IB has become one of our foundation partners, supporting our mission to protect consumers from fighting scams. And with that, I would like to conclude. I hope you will join us in our struggle together with Group IB, and I hope to meet you next year physically, face-to-face, and be able to tell you that we are winning the battle against scams. Thank you very much.
So, thank you so much, Yuri. It was a very exciting presentation, and I would say that what is extremely important here, that did you hear and did you see how Scam Advisor together with different brands tried to force a local region, tried to communicate with the local regulator in everything that was related to different types of scams, and these that really helped them to decrease the number of scams that were registered by this particular regulator. And this is also extremely important, that we really need to get together. We really need to make this common effort and to tackle not only phishings but also scams. We have been discussing lots of things related to scams today, and the major thing that of course also was mentioned, that scams are becoming more organized, more internationally distributed, and this is also extremely important to start keeping this in mind and to start investigating such things. So, you know, for the past year, I would say literally for the past 2 years, we detected a scheme which was designed by a local group of people in Russia and CIS. And after that, it was spread all over the world. So this is the scheme of how it works. There is a group of scam operators. So they are admins, like they call themselves. Yep. So they develop some software. Basically, these are Telegram bots. So bots made especially for Telegram channel, for Telegram Messenger. After that, they have workers. So these are the group of people that are attracted to these scams and that are using their software, using their bots. They use their bots for cheating people. How does this process work? So as soon as a worker decides to cheat someone, he needs to go through a marketplace. So first of all, these were only Russian-speaking marketplaces, but for now they're covering just each marketplace from any part of the world. So they need just to go there to pick up an advertisement, to pick up a good, to copy this link to send into this Telegram bot, to get a scamming link, and then to go into direct interaction with the users, with the seller of this particular good, just via Messenger. And they're going to share this fake link, asking to ship the good itself. Hey guys, to withdraw money, you just need to use this link, and that's it. So I've already paid everything. So this is the flow. After that, the victim opens the link, inserts his or her credit card details, and afterward, not the phishing issue happens, but the direct payment to the pocket of the admin of this group. This is also extremely smart from their side, because this means that the person won't be able to refund the money, to retrieve them back, because this is just a typical banking transaction. This is just a direct payment to somebody. So here you may also see that sometimes, in some very seldom cases, also the data is stolen too. If this happens, that these bunches of credit card data, login passwords and so on are usually sold on the darknet. You know, we call this group as class scam because they're working mostly with marketplaces, and this was their, I would say, first attempt. So they started to operate, to cheat people using different marketplaces. For now, they started it like 2 years ago, and for now there are 70 groups operated worldwide. So 70 standalone groups. They're involving 20,000 workers, and the average age of workers is between 16 and 20. So they are really young and small boys and girls who are really not aware of cybercrime. They really don't pay too much attention to what they are doing. For them, it's just a game. This scheme, for the only 2020 year, has taken from victims' pockets more than $9 million. And just by one group, more than 50 standalone websites were created to cheat people. This means 500 copies of different marketplaces. Also, speaking about the regional distribution and the types of fraudulent industries that were affected by these groups of bad guys, I would say that yeah, they started from marketplaces, but now they decided to move on. They're creating fake bots for cheating, delivery services, even retail companies, and of course banking. So banks are also under attack for now. Speaking about the regions, you may see their diversity in different domain name zones. So they're covering pretty all of those. But what can be done here? I would say their mature threat intelligence approach implemented for scam attribution is really rather important and is a must-have feature. So this is a mind map of how our analysts and our solution were researching this particular case. And this is just one case, this is just one group which started to operate 2 years ago and which just really is trying to rule the entire world. But there are also lots of different, maybe some smaller groups that are doing something more specific, and which ones are also needed to be researched and to be investigated. So, for the past 10 years, we made lots of different reports. I mean, not the entire amount of reports and investigations provided by Group IB as a whole, but also those ones that are related to scams, to piracy, to counterfeiting, and so on. And after these years, we see that one holistic major approach should be used here. And this is scam intelligence. So you really need to go deeper. You really need to uncover who is covering behind the scenes. And so here is our manifest.
I think it's time for a manifest. Yes, Dmitry, thank you for all those words. What we see also, and what Dmitry tried to show here, is that fraudsters and scammers and cyber criminals are financially motivated, of course, in the first place, but also highly organized. That's why we are suggesting that it's also time to join forces in our community here at this summit. So we are suggesting for this 5 key activities. The first one about fraudulent schemes. We have to be able to share fraudulent schemes. When someone sees a fraudulent scheme, researches it, then he should be able to share it with the community so that everyone is aware of it. The second one, technical indicators, just like with the fraudulent schemes. When someone is the patient zero of an attack, it has so much worth to share the technical indicators to the rest of the community so that they can not only protect themselves, but also enrich their knowledge, look out for what is out there, and be able to respond to it in a proper manner. The third one, which is also very close to our heart in general, is attribution. Attributing attacks to certain groups, not only looking at the surface of things, but going deeper, attribute and understand from where is the epicenter and from where are the attacks coming. The fourth one is the response part. Dmitry mentioned a couple of times how difficult or more difficult it is to respond to scams than it is to phishing. We have to find a way how we can, as a community also, and together with our authorities, respond properly to scam attacks, initiate takedowns, and initiate proper response. The fifth key activity should be around escalation. We should be able not only to detect and to share information and to respond, but also to escalate it, to be able to take major steps against those threat actors.
Okay, so we successfully have come to the last part, to the questions part. So let's pick some questions from the list and let's try to answer those.
There are actually a lot of them.
Yep.
Do you want to start reading?
Yep, thank you so much. So what do you think? What trends will be in the field of online scams in the coming years?
Yeah, I think we spoke a lot about it even today already. We see that scammers and fraudsters and cyber criminals are getting better organized, better funded as well, and more sophisticated. We see that the tools they are developing are, from a technology perspective, more sophisticated, deliver more options to work, like with the classic scam, for example, where we have seen that specific administrators are building tools for workers. So those tools are becoming better and better and better. And then, of course, all the organizational background behind it. It's like businesses. Businesses want to grow, want to strive, and want to export. So we will see many schemes which started in a very small, maybe even geographical area. We'll see them expand into other countries as well and repeat them. So we should be able to follow those trends, follow those attacks, and then of course respond properly to it. So that's why Manifesto, we should unite.
Okay. This was a quite long explanation, but it was extremely clear for me. So the next question is how to deal with targeted email phishing and scam. Do you have any ideas or maybe ready-made technologies?
So if the first answer was too long for you, then I'll keep this very short because this is not really fitting into the topic of the DRP Summit. But yes, we have a solution at Group IB. It's called Group IB Atmosphere, and Atmosphere is an email protection tool. So we are looking at malware, we are looking at email phishing, we are looking at a business email compromise, and a lot more things with this solution. Let me also read a couple of questions, okay?
Please do.
Does your memo imply the creation of specific working groups and direct interaction with local regulators? Maybe you want to answer something?
Okay, so it seems that my answer is also going to be too long here. But I will be trying to keep it smaller. So, yes, of course, we are really striving to working together, to building working groups and to sit down around the table with the different types of companies to discuss what could be done, what initiatives could be started to take down to eliminate the issues of scams. And also, I assume that it is extremely important to get to this conversation, to include into this discussion also authorities, because you know, as soon as phishing is really recognized, we need to do the same with different types of scams and trademark misuse. So I assume this will really lead to a perfect result.
Okay, good answer.
So,
one more?
your turn.
One more?
Please.
Okay. Our brand is undergoing attacks similar to those described by you today. Is there any opportunity not only to start work on identifying and blocking sites, but also to find out who is behind this activity and force the perpetrators to be punished in court? Okay, this is going into the direction of investigations. May I answer?
Please. Yep.
I mentioned in the very beginning when I was talking about the Group IB ecosystem that we are for the last 18 years already in the investigation business, working with law enforcement, trying to de-anonymize criminals, scammers and fraudsters, and then hopefully also put them behind bars and get them punished. So if you want to go this further step and make a real impact on cybercrime and try to punish those criminals, then please come to us. We'll be very happy to have a conversation about it and do something with you together.
Okay, so it seems to me that we're being a bit out of time. So thank you so much for all the listed questions, and please don't be afraid, we're going to answer all of those. So the last part we just will send you via emails. Thank you for joining us. It was a great pleasure, and I hope
see you next year.
In some months we'll maybe see you in real life.
Or next year at the second version of our summit.
Yes, or maybe in a year.
Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.